I'm Matthew Bellisario. We're here at True Story Brewing. We're here with José Carr and friends, and we're talking about jazz right here after a wonderful jam session with everybody. And we're just gonna have a little conversation, talk about jazz. And we have José Carr here. He can introduce himself and talk a little bit about why he's here, why we're doing this jazz session.
Well, my name is Daniel Carr. They call me Jose, and been around town playing for a little while, and got exposed to the music a long time ago with the guys going on to the river on the other side. We got our brother Bo here, which you'll meet him later. He's the only one that was holding on to us. And I'm glad to be here, and we met Matt Recorders, and I'm glad to be one of the guys here to talk about the music.
All right. Well, we have Willie here on piano. We're going to talk, how do you know Jose, and how long have you been playing with him?
Met him a long time ago on a jam session, Studio 98, those days. That's where we really got our start in playing jazz.
So how many years ago was that?
Wow. Probably maybe about 40 years ago. And some of our mentor to the left, Bo, we learned how to play jazz under him.
All right, and Bernard, do you?
Okay, I'm Bernard McQueen. Me and Jose went to high school together. We actually played in bands together in high school. So we've been playing together that long. Our first experience doing a jam session was actually down at his father's club called Studio 98. And we've been sticking with it ever since. I mean, you know, we came up under older musicians, very good musicians, and who were brutally honest. You know, so, you know, if you wanted to play, you know, you really had to stay with it.
All right, and Bo, you've been around a long time. You played with a lot of people, the Commodores and everything else, right?
Yeah. Well, my name is Bo Berry, and I met Jose back in the 70s. And at the same place Bernard was saying, at the Studio 98, which is his folks owned it. And they had started a session, so I went down one Sunday night, man, and it was interesting because there were a lot of great players at that time in town. And we would do that every Sunday night. So it became like a family, just a tradition of wanting to play. I mean, we go down there and stay all night long, man, just to play, you know.
Especially Christmas Eve, bro.
Oh, yeah. We spent all our Christmas Eve in the club playing, man.
Everybody go put the toys out and come in there and play.
That's right. So I've been knowing Jose since back in the 70s, and I've always, wherever he played and had a session going, I always supported him. I've always did that. Because I love to play. I just like to play. I mean, you know, I really love to play. And then I like supporting him because he's trying to keep the music happening. And he's younger than I am, so it's a blessing to see him still doing this. Because there's not many more left.
Carrying on the tradition.
Huh?
Carrying on the tradition
that's right.
Of traditional jazz, right. Which is what I want to talk about, is why do you have this jam session, and why does everybody here play at this jam session? Why do you have it?
Well, we had it here, but we didn't have plenty more places before we got here. So the why goes a long ways. You know, we didn't have a lot of spots to play. And you never did meet the guy. He always summed it up in Elliott. He played drums. He passed before, about a year or two ago. He played with me a long time. That's why Tim ended up in the band playing with me. But Elliott used to tell everybody, and I didn't know he was saying it to somebody. Told me, said, Jose playing for the cause. You know, we like to be compensated when we play, but we played, and actually I think me and Willie and Bernard learned it from Bo. You know, I seen Bo come to jam sessions for 30 years, ain't never got a dime. Just interested in playing. So I guess that's, you know, wealth. And getting back to Bo met me personally at Studio 98, but me and Bernard, we knew Bo, we was in high school at the old French Quarters. You know, down there on Mars Avenue, me and Bernard sneak in there. Yeah, you played the Garden. Then we remember seeing him with Black Haze Express. Yeah. So, you know, and I remember he was playing with this band, the Family Funk Players. He was finna leave and go with Black Haze, and I supposed to come and take his place. It was a little neighborhood band. I remember, he don't remember me, but I remember I was about
Yeah.
Bo was right out of high school. I was about like in 5th, 6th grade trying to play with a little family band. But on the jazz tip, we did meet him on the scene. And been the same, but like Bernard said, the musicians back then, they were brutally honest, but Bo was always nice. He was always the nice one, you know. But the rest of them was something else, you know.
I wasn't hard like
the rest of them was something else.
But he still told you what you need to do.
Well, I must be right.
Like the attorney that came down last week, Ed Berry. Oh, they tore him up, but Ed always came back, you know. I mean, a lot of guys was really thought it was just easy to play, man, but the guys that Bo was telling you about just gone, they ran everybody away. So they just felt like Cleve Eaton always said this. He said, if they leave, they sissies.
Right. Okay.
He's always said that.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't take it. You know what I'm saying?
That's another thing I want to get to is talking about the jazz language, because you're all talking about the jazz language,
Right, yeah.
and how it takes years to develop that. So,
It does, yeah.
Bo, can you talk about that a little bit?
It is a certain language when you're playing jazz. And a lot of people are not willing to put in the work that it takes to learn to do that. So that's why you have so many people that stray away from jazz, because it's such a long process. You know, I mean, we're talking about years of studying and practicing to learn a skill that most folks stray away from. They rather go, and I played in a rhythm and blues band. What he talking about, I was playing in a rhythm and blues band when they met me.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and, but I was always playing jazz on the side. But I started playing more jazz when we started that set at Studio 98.
Yeah.
Because it was an every Sunday thing.
Right.
I mean, every Sunday. So you know, in order to learn the music, man, it's a way of life. It's just a part of life, you know, that you have to spend your time, which most folks don't want to spend that kind of time, in order to really get it together and learn the language like it should be played. You hear a lot of people playing jazz, but just listen to the way it's being played.
Right,
You know what you said,
Yeah.
Right. Bernard, as far as learning the language, the jazz, and then coming up and learning it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of listening. I mean, you just can't just go up and just start playing just any old thing. And when they were talking about speaking, you know, I'm not really a soloist, you know, but I do understand, you know, when they were talking about learning the jazz language, I'm an accompanist, you know. So, you know, the whole thing, just like me and you talked earlier, you know, the whole thing has to speak. It just can't be just one person speaking. I mean, you can have a soloist up there playing his heart out speaking, but if the rhythm section ain't giving him, you know, what he needs, you know, it's messing the whole thing up there. You know, we heard some players come up and,
Right.
you know, some things can just ruin the whole thing. And it all, it's just like everybody is speaking to their, you know, speaking among themselves to say one thing. You know, so, you know, the thing about jazz, you really have to be in tune to the rest of the guys that's up there playing too, in order to give a good product.
Right. Willie?
Well, actually it comes down to listening to all the other pieces in the ensemble. Because when you listen to other pieces in the ensemble, you can arrive at the same theme or whatever thought or idea. I remember the first time I actually really heard Bo, he probably don't remember this. It was at Miles College, a local college, with the Birmingham Heritage Band.
Yeah.
It was you, Nate Miller, Ted Johnson. I forget who the bass.
Joe.
Yeah, it was Joe. Yeah, it was Joe. And I saw you guys. It was a few other people there. It was a small setup of the Birmingham.
Right, a small band
combo. But it still was an honest piece. And then when I saw you guys expressing yourselves with the language and stuff, like Bernard just suggested, that's when I really became real interested in playing jazz. I never told you that.
Yeah, I hear you.
But Actually, that's when I got interested. Then when Jose did the Studio 98, guess what? You walk in.
Yeah.
And man,
Well, see, I came up around a bunch of old guys. I hung out with old guys, and all these guys were masters, man. You hear me? I'm talking about great players. So I got a chance to see a lot of the guys that they didn't get a chance to meet.
Yeah.
And hey, man, it was just like they just said. These guys lived and talked music 24 hours that they awoke that long. Believe me, they loved it.
Yeah.
And I was going to sessions with a lot of older guys. They used to have sessions at a place, it was Ward's place, downtown, and they used to have a lot of sessions there on Saturdays. So I would go through there on Saturdays just to play, you know. But the music is a challenge, and that's what makes it so interesting. See, once most kids leave, I spoke to a high school the other day. Once most kids leave high school, go to college, once they leave the band, they stop playing because nobody is making them aware of it's more to the instrument than dancing.
And marching.
There's nobody making them aware of this. So it's not a thing that they don't like jazz, they're not promoting jazz to the kids. See, when I came up, my teacher was a jazz player.
That's right.
yeah.
He was a trumpet player, a good trumpet player.
Yep.
So I heard it all the time, man. When we didn't have band rehearsals, he in there practicing. So man, I'm listening to all this, man. I'm saying, man, this something different. So that's how I became interested in jazz, because my teacher was a jazz.
So do you think that's why jazz is dying now? I mean, is it because it's not
Most of the
being taught?
It's not being taught. The people that teaching can't teach it.
Well, it's not
Makes
being
it-
taught.
It's not being taught.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you find a lot of band directors that say, oh, okay, I have a jazz band, but if you listen to what they're playing, it's not really jazz.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like smooth jazz thing.
Right.
But see, when I was coming up, teachers were playing. They were
playing,
playing on weekends, man. I wasn't old enough to go in the club, but my sister was old enough. She would tell me about my teacher. She would see him playing. then my choir director, she was a player.
Right.
You know, Bunny P. Ryan.
Yeah, I
Oh,
heard
her?
that.
Man, she was fantastic.
I heard about her.
So who? She's
I heard
a
about
master.
her.
So they pushed it. And not only did they push it, they would teach it, and then they can teach you the street part of it too. They can get beyond the educational part, and they can get into the street thing, because that's what they did. But man, you don't have a whole lot of band directors now that get out and play.
none.
You don't have that.
Matter of fact, I mean, Bo used to tell John, his son used to tell him all the times. So Dad said, Jose, you the only one around teaching school that can play jazz for a long time. After all them other guys left.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean, they just,
And getting back to Bo, hey, me and Bernard, we had a teacher that played jazz too. He played with Louis Armstrong,
Yeah.
and NBC Orchestra.
Yeah.
Didn't
Talking about
play.
Mr. Gordon.
Amos Gordon, he'd
Yeah.
be in the band room playing that stuff, and then he'll play all that stuff, and then look at us and say, well, you know I play violin. You know, all the old crazy about he played violin and all that. Yeah, he just said stuff like, did it be? I play violin, you know, I don't really play saxophone, that bit killing it, you know. And he was past his time when we got him. You know, he was toward the end when we got him, you know. We didn't get him like Jolton and Leonard Webb.
Yeah,
they
right.
got him in, you know. And so,
young
you know,
when they
you were
got
young, so, you know, and like you had Hooper, you young. So when we met Hooper and Jesse, man, it was done. You know, they were like, they're just coasting, you know,
Right.
at the end of it. But my dad was the bartender, and guys down there were doing their thing. They was getting high, doing everything, but my daddy was never bothered.
Speaking of his dad, I knew his dad before I met him.
That's right. My dad
right.
owned the Parliament House in
From out
58.
playing, exactly.
Yeah.
I met him
my
out
dad was the
playing.
head bartender on the South Side. He was the only African American bartender they were called.
And he always been a jazz listener.
Always been a jazz
Always,
listener.
man. Ever since I
Yeah.
knew him.
Yeah, he always been a jazz listener. Jesse be drunk, running around the club with his shoes off there. My dad said, don't bother him. Don't bother him. Let him have a good time.
And we must, oh, go ahead.
The bottom line with wanting to play is first you have to have the desire. They said, listening is a big part of it.
Yeah, you have to
but
listen.
you got to have the desire and willing to put in the work.
Put in the work.
If you're not willing to do that, it's not going to happen.
Some people like to be
It's
seen.
not going to happen at home either.
Like most of the fusion
Right.
cats, they want to be seen. And ain't nothing wrong with playing smooth jazz. Like I said, me and Bernard, then we're playing R&B. You know, we started out playing R&B. You know, we were playing all that Anita Baker stuff when we were young, you know. So, you know, ain't nothing wrong with it, but, you know, but to
Well,
say that.
you know, man, well, I'll just share this with you. When I went to Commodore, I realized when I left, I already knew these guys were going to be successful, man. We were making money then, back then, in the 70s and 80s. But I spent a lot of time in New York, and I'm playing in rhythm and blues. And man, I would go out to clubs and hear jazz players. And hey, man, instantly, I decided I'm going to take the first flight back to Birmingham and learn how to play this horn. And that's what I did, man.
Because the rest of them weren't
I
interested.
left the Commodore because I wanted to learn. I didn't want to be 70 and 80 years old having to jump around and dance, regardless of the money. It wasn't about the money with me.
Right.
It wasn't about that. It was about learning a skill that I saw these old guys doing, and they would go to their grave doing what they believed. So that was a big impact on me, man.
So who would you say? Let's kind of go down the line. I'd like to hear who your influences are. Your biggest influences on playing.
Now,
Just throughout your life, the biggest influences on jazz, the players that influence you the
well,
most.
my teacher,
Okay.
Chuck Clark. There was another guy. I can't remember his name. He was a trumpet player, and Boo Boo Smith,
Yeah.
Cleveland Smith.
Yeah.
He was my teacher my last 2 years in school, and man, they was big influence to me because they was showing me stuff that most people didn't even know nothing about. And the kids, it was other kids in the band now, but my teacher always took personal interest in what I was doing. And the rest of them didn't have that desire to want to learn to play. They were good players, but they didn't want to put in the work to play, you know. So those were the biggest influence in my life.
Okay. Bernard, any biggest influences on your playing?
Well, I always like good music. And I mean, that's for us the best music that I ever been enlightened to is jazz, you know. So, you know, not saying all of it's good, but you're gonna find that's the best you're gonna get. That's the best you're gonna get. So, you know, and then, you know, just being around guys, the one who really influenced me the most was this guy that really got us into jazz was Jesse Taylor. He was the most honest guy, you know, and when I heard him play, you know, it's just like, you know, he had this, I mean, when he played what he felt. He wasn't about being slick all the time, stuff like that. I mean, he really played the horn. He was not known, but he was honest about playing. You know, so I mean, that was my biggest influence, Jesse.
About you, Willie?
Well, actually, yes, Jesse Taylor and Bo, and some of the other guys like Chuck Clark. They're no longer with us. It's a lot of guys I can mention that used to be at that Studio 98 session. We had, Hooper T. Abrams, that's his former teacher. He had influence on all of us in some ways. It's just so many cats that were there. And the thing about it is they made us see that we still learn how to play every day. It's a journey. It's a music journey, the quest to go and keep improving. I'm still learning how to play.
All right, Jose, so I just want to talk about your biggest influences in playing the trumpet.
It's amazing. At the time, I didn't know. Quite natural, almost said Amos Gord, because he the first guy that I saw him give another guy in the band a record during that time to Blues March, a guy named Billy Murphy. He was ahead of all of us. And he went home and transcribed and brought it back to Mr. Gordon and looked at it, you know, and said, y'all need to be transcribed. You know, he would just always just set the tone. But even before then, I was lucky. Dick Clark, which is Chuck Clark's brother, which I didn't know at the time, he the one set my armature. in elementary school. I didn't know that until I met Chuck, but Dick Clark had died. And then, after I left him, I had Ernest Carvin. He was a good trumpet teacher. You know what I'm saying? I had him. Then I went to Amos Gordon. And then I met Jolton. And then, like I said, I met Bo. Bo, my real good influence, because even before my dad died, it been 2 months ago, I be putting on records, and he used to get me and Bo mixed up. He said, man, you trying to sound like Bo now, ain't you? You know what I'm saying? You know? So I know me and Bernard and Willie, we've been around, we've been around Bo 40 years playing, you know what I'm saying? So, Amos Gordon, Bo, and then I played in the Heritage Band. That's why when guys tell me they play jazz, that's a big statement. I've been, just local in Birmingham, I ain't been around the guys he's been around, but I've been around some good players. So when the guy tell me they play jazz, that's a big statement. You know what I'm saying? So in the Heritage Band, we had a saxophone session, man. Old men be having their legs crossed reading that stuff, man. Newman and all of them.
Yeah, Ralph Cook.
Ralph Cook, I wasn't in that band. I wasn't in that band. I was in that Newman band and Jesse.
I didn't know he played.
Frank Adams and all them. And Mr. Lowe.
Ralph Cook.
Yeah, he was in the other band.
He played with
George them.
Miles Collegian.
Yeah.
Like Boss Mel Williams.
Yeah. But I can't just say one person. But I'm gonna tell you what, and I've been in them schools. I went to pretty school. When I went to undergrad, I was by myself. It was strictly a marching band school. I used to try to warm up on some jazz. They look at me funny. I didn't know what I was doing anything back here, but Studio 98. When I met Bo them, they were old my eyes up right there. I went to North Texas and came back. Texas was all right to get the technique together on the horn and all that. Everybody just playing fast. But to really play, the cats was here. They was right here in Birmingham.
So that brings me to my next question is, and Bo, we'll start with you, is about the history of jazz in Birmingham, because a lot of people don't know, Tuxedo Junction, which I'm kind of familiar with, but I'm not very familiar with the whole history of jazz in Birmingham, which...
Well, Birmingham was a big jazz scene. I'm talking about jazz musicians from New York used to come to Birmingham, man, and play. All these guys that they're telling you about, a whole lot of them left back in 30s and 40s and stuff, man, to go to New York because there was more work in music. See, but Birmingham have always been a growing spot for jazz musicians, man, always, ever since I can remember. And I go way back.
And was Ensley the main area in Birmingham, or is there a lot, Ensley, or what parts of Birmingham?
Just one of them.
Well, Ensley and then downtown, man, on 4th Avenue. 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue was like being in New York City, man. It was always jazz going on down in that area, And then they had places like Madison Night Spot. It was just so many places back then. And a lot of the places, man, they closed up. They started closing down because a lot of guys were leaving town because there wasn't enough work for them. Listen, there was so much music going on, man. I know some guys, they told me, the older guys, they said it was so much music going on out in Tuxedo Junction. They used to get off at Birmingham Country Club. Now, we're talking about back in the 40s and 50s. This is integration now. Jazz musicians have always got along. There has never been no split between them. These guys would get off work at Birmingham Country Club, catch the trolley bus, and go to Ensley, to Tuxedo Junction, to catch these guys, the jazz set that they had. That's how big of an impact jazz had on Birmingham.
And then since the 50s and 60s, it's kind of gone down since?
Well, I'll say in the 60s, it still had some jazz spots called Ward and all them places were still going on. But by the mid-'70s and late 70s, things started changing with jazz. It started changing, and it continued to, kind of downfall from that point on. And it's showing up worse now. You know what? people come to town, man, Birmingham,
no place to
and
go
they'll
on
call me, hey, man, any place to go, man, we can hear some jazz. Nowhere.
On weekend. Nowhere.
Nowhere on a weekend. And that used to be jazz on weekends in clubs. But see, they stopped doing it, man. You can't find a club on that's willing to even try to put a jazz club in it on a weekend. They stopped.
Yeah. And have this going in on Tuesday nights is really a unique thing. When I came in here, I was very surprised by what I heard. Yeah. And so I think that's that you guys here are here playing this traditional jazz is a real treasure.
Well, you know.
Yes, it is.
Well, you know, just like Jose said, you know, we done did jam sessions at a lot of places, and they always been on an off night because you know they would always say, you know, just like in other places like New York, you know, they would have jam sessions on the nights, the off nights after they done did their work, you know, where they done played in the club. So then the musicians, they have a place to come get together and do their jam sessions. But we have done jam sessions a lot of places. You know, this place right here, we done had better luck. You know, people been coming out. Yeah, and you know, we're grateful for it. But like I say, we've done jam sessions where it may be just on us in there.
Yeah, and we still play just as hard.
And I'm talking about we would do years in a place.
Yeah, nothing but chairs.
Yeah, that's all we play to. Just play
chairs
to the
might
chairs,
be
man.
dancing.
Right.
That's about it. That's the only thing gonna dance out those chairs.
Ages.
Yeah, and
we used to do a session. I used to have a session downtown, and all kind of guys would come through. When they come to town, like concerts, when they get off through playing at the concert, they come to the club, man, and play. You know, on the Avenue, I was playing down there, man.
Right. Yeah.
Winton and all of them used to come through there.
Yeah, Winton Marcellus, yes.
Yeah, I mean, all of them. I got pictures of all them guys, him, Grover Washington, all of them.
Yeah.
Because them guys, they wanted to play. After they got through doing what they were doing, they wanted to get out and play.
Right. And so what do you think will keep jazz alive? What do you think is gonna keep it going?
Well, this is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
In Birmingham.
This is it.
This is
Well,
it.
I mean, they tell me that the kids have a thing going on, on Mondays, you know. But this is it.
Yeah. But what I like to say is, Jose, he kind of operate in the tradition of Jotham Callens. Jotham Callens gave a lot back to the young musicians, and I see he tried to carry on that legacy as much as he could. Good job at it, you know. I mean, with the Jazz Hall of Fame, they were doing music lessons with the Saturdays and stuff.
Yeah.
He worked with that, and that's a good thing. Jotham Callens, another great one, influence on all our music.
That's the one who wrote Council. That song Council.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he the one who wrote Council. Yeah, but like I say, I just like, you know, I mean, I sum it up. I like to play, and I remember his teacher Hoop used to always tell me. I used to talk to Hoop on the phone. He said, Jose, you spend a lot of money in music and all that stuff, man. Just go and do what you like to do, man. He said, man, you ain't got, you know, you ain't got to play no other kind of stuff. Just play jazz, you know. It's for the cause.
Right.
It's for the cause to keep it going. Right. And that's why I used to talk to Tim all the time. I was at Miles. That's why I got him.
Bring him up in a minute.
Right. That's why I used to talk to Tim about coming. I said, man, ain't about no money. You can learn, and you younger than everybody. We be dead and gone. He can sit here and talk about this.
Right. And he probably could possibly carry on that legacy.
Yeah, right. So that's what we're going to talk to you next. Bo, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say here before we're going to bring Tim up and talk to him?
Well, to sum it up for me, man, I just think music, I mean, jazz music, it's like I said earlier. If you're not willing to put in the work, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Right. You got to put in the work.
It's just not going to. It's just not. By happens going to happen. You got to put in the work.
You got to put in the time.
Right.
Man.
Yeah.
Some people just want it good enough to be seen, make a video, do all
whatever,
that, you know.
Yeah, when it comes down to
sometimes it comes down to hours and hours of practice. In your house. And sometimes hours, I mean like 4 hours, 5, that's still not enough. You got to get out you gotta play.
Yeah.
And you just gotta get out and do what you gotta do.
And sometimes that might be you're not good enough. You need to go back and practice some more, right?
Well, you
Yeah,
know,
right.
well,
You're your worst critic.
I'm all in all in. I'm still out playing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, you don't. It's no end, man.
Right.
It's just no end. But I'm gonna tell you this, and I believe this. There's two types of music. The most challenging music, jazz and classical.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
Trust me. If you go and listen to the average classical player, they put in 12 and 13 hours a day. Do you hear me, man?
That's about right. That's about
You
right.
hear me?
That's about right.
I'm telling you now. I'm telling you.
Right.
I just studied with a jazz, with a classical trumpet player, and they stayed on the building, number music, all day long practicing, man.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with jazz. Yeah. Good jazz players practice all the time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, my teacher used to always say, the day you miss, somebody else made that day.
That's right.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off what he just said, I remember it was this musician, a professional musician. He might have played in the symphony. He don't feel like he can perform unless he play that piece about 100 times correctly. That's that kind of commitment.
Over and over again.
Yeah, 100 times consecutively without any mess ups. Then he feel like he can go out and perform.
Well, that's what classical people are.
You know, like, people always talk about win myself. Win myself and put some time in. Home.
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, yes.
I'm talking about at 9 and 10 years old.
Yes, yeah.
He didn't put some time in.
I mean, you can hear it. I
can
mean,
hear
when
it,
you
man.
hear a good player, man, you can hear,
He
you can
played
hear,
that, huh?
you can
Damn.
hear the work. You can hear the time they done put in it, man.
Yeah.
That just didn't happen.
Yeah,
Right.
no.
He didn't just wake up and pick up the
Wake
horn
up
and
out
say,
of your pillow. Yeah.
And speaking of which, Jose probably don't remember. He told me this. I remember when the first time I heard of Win Myself, you told me about it. You said he was rehearsing so much by himself, and then his folks got concerned because he wasn't doing anything else that young folks do.
No,
because he wasn't social.
At
He
10
wasn't
years
being
old,
social.
he just told his dad and him he didn't want to play no basketball and all that no more.
No,
At 10,
concerned, man. I remember
You
he
don't
told
have
me
time
that.
he had time. He just started at
You
10
don't
years
have
old.
that.
He just started grinding.
Yeah.
You know? That's why
and I'm going to tell you something else, man. Most people don't realize this, but most of the best players I've heard and talked to, believe it or not, man, most of their friends are musicians. I mean, they associate, but they don't have time to do what other folks have time to do.
Right.
They don't have that kind of time.
Yeah, they sacrifice some things in life.
Man, I lost a lot of little honeys, man, coming to high school.
Oh, me too.
I'm telling you. Yeah, I want to go home and practice. They want to go to the movie. I don't have time, man. You know what I'm saying? I just don't have time. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, that's the way life is. That's the way it is, man.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you have to make a sacrifice and be willing to stick to that.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, to a certain
It's more than
extent.
just a gig. You know, everybody good enough to do a gig. Jesse always said, you can make a gig. It's more than just a gig. It's really, trying to study the craft, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's folks gigging every day. I mean, Yeah, but it's a special thing, man. It's really a special art that most people are not willing to work and learn the craft to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right, and that brings us to our next. We're going to bring Tim up here in just a moment, so we'll take a break here and bring Tim up. All right, so we're back and we're talking with Tim here, who is our youngest jazz musician here that we have, and so we're just talking with Bo and talking about the practice that it takes, but it's interesting to get a perspective from somebody who's younger. I mean, everybody else here has been playing for 40 years, and now you're playing the drums and you're playing jazz. So tell us a little bit about why you're playing jazz and how you met all these guys, Jose and everybody.
Gotcha. Well, first, I actually met Mr. Carr when I was like in elementary school, literally. So, I mean, my dad would actually bring me to clubs to play. I wasn't even old enough to even get in. So, but it just so happened they would call me to fill in. And, since that time, I was just curious to learn about the jazz music. And it just really just stuck with me ever since then. And, basically was just curious to learn about jazz music, who was the pioneers of jazz. and you know, actually get to play with guys that actually knows the language of bebop. So that's how it all started.
So how many years has that been now that you've been playing with these guys? I mean, I know you took the place of the other drummer that they've been playing with for years.
Yeah.
So how many years now have you been, or how long have you been playing with Jose?
I want to say 2011, 12. It was somewhere around there. Like I said, I mean, since actually playing at the jam session, I gotten to meet a lot of professional musicians that actually love to play this kind of music. Particularly Elliot Ashley. He was a great jazz musician that just play his butt off, literally. Every time you see him playing the drums, he just give it 100%. And, you know, that's something I really respect about him.
And so how many hours a day did you practice? I mean,
Well,
many, I mean, a lot, or I mean, because Bo was talking about the time you have to put into to learn the language and to be able to play.
I mean, of course, I put, you know, hours into it because, like I said, this is, I can't really imagine myself doing anything other than music. So music is pretty much my lifestyle. I love music. I mean, that's pretty much it. I love to practice whenever I can do it now. But, you know, when I was in grade school, I used to practice pretty much 7 days a week, literally. So every chance I get to practice, I will do that.
What do you have to say to the youth, Jose, about now
Well,
learning jazz? And
that's what it is. It's amazing you said that because I was talking to Dr. Tucker, the director of the Jazz Hall of Fame, and we was talking about the direction we're gonna go when I open back up. And I told her I didn't want no high school students. I want students in the 3rd and 4th grade. I want to start.
Interesting.
That's how I want to start. I don't really want no high school student because they normally be set what they gonna do. I don't want no grown people. I just want some 3rd and 4th and 5th graders and start them from there. And you can go and guide them. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want, you know. And I just presented that to her, you know. That just, I had been thinking about it because, you know, if a guy, I learned it from teaching school. If you get a kid in the 6th grade on an instrument, they're probably gonna play in high school. But if you get a kid and start them in the 9th grade, you're wasting your time. They ain't gonna do it.
I'm gonna stick with it.
So my thing was like, let me give me some younger people, some 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders and start. That's basically what I was doing down there at the Jazz Hall of Fame. I had like a little 14-piece band, you know.
It's a lot of meat in what he said because when they get in high school, they start getting into a real social thing, girlfriend, boyfriend, you know, that comes first, and then they get jobs and stuff, and then all of a sudden they don't have time to do it because I know that just by being an educator. I've been teaching high school, and that's interesting. He's right about that. And if you get them when they're young, and chances are they're gonna keep playing because I think all of us, we started when we were real young because I've been playing since I was 10. So that's a good example of that.
You have to expose the children, and then the parents got to, you have to expose them. But right now, most of the parents, especially ones, they illiterate. They don't know nothing about the music. So it's a dying art form. So that's the purpose of me having, you know, and to be straight up, well, you know who come in here and hear us play. You see it. You know, don't none of my people come in here and hear us play that much, 1 or 2. But nobody come here to play but Caucasian people that really like the music. I mean, you might get 1 or 2 person might come, but, you know, I know all my folks there right now. They're at Legion Field. Barbecue.
Right? Why do you think that is? I mean, it's such a rich tradition. Why is
we created the music.
Right. You're right.
We don't believe in preserving
My
culture. I hate to say that.
My dad's always tell me this. He said, yeah, you and Bernard and Willie and Bo down there playing. He said, the music y'all playing. He said, you know, my dad lived to be 93. He said, the music y'all playing, they dead. Them people dead. The people that y'all playing for now, they're not interested in that. We're telling the truth.
How many people do you know your age that are playing? I mean, did you actually have any friends that came up and played with that are still playing?
I do have a couple of friends, but I mean, majority of the friends that I know that plays this kind of music is Caucasian. And I mean, that's the truth about it, man. Like I said, I know for me, this particular jam session has been a blessing for me because this is how I learned how to play this particular style. You're not gonna learn it in school, and that's just the reality of it. So I mean, you have to go in the street to learn it.
So being able to play with these guys, I mean, just me looking at it is a huge blessing that you can actually learn from all these guys that have all this experience.
Yeah, and I'm still learning, man. So I mean, even from Bo, all these guys that's here. So.
And what do you find the most challenging?
The most challenging, honestly, just keeping, studying. For me, is the most part. Is the challenging and practicing, and understanding what the language is. And like I said, I've gotten better at that over time. But of course, I'm still studying and learning the language of bebop and jazz. So.
All right. Any closing thoughts, guys? Bernard, do you want to? Any closing thoughts on anything? On keeping the whole tradition alive?
We need to keep the tradition alive. But I will say this. There has to be, and me and you talked about this earlier, in my opinion, it has to be a culture change.
Right.
And I don't think any of us really had the answers, for this. Just like I told you, man, when jazz was in its heyday, it was played on the what? The radio. The only thing we can introduce jazz is in these smaller venues.
That's it.
And like I say, we thank y'all for coming down to, kind of get this thing out. Maybe some people here, and it may start growing some. We never know, But it has to be a culture change. The masses are listening to something else. They're really listening to something else, and it's kind of hard. I mean, I know Jose and Will are educators, and they had experiences, with teaching kids and stuff like that, but the kids still is looking into something else.
Right.
They're still
sometimes the kids don't even know how good they are.
Right.
They be good. They don't even know.
True.
Don't even know how good they are. I just have kids play real good. They want to go play basketball, and they can't beat me. I used to always tell y'all can't beat me in basketball. I used to tell them that. And their parents have stars in their eyes. Have stars in their eyes. Then you see them years later. I mean, this kids I taught that was good. You see them years later, they're working at churches. I thought you were gonna be playing football. I thought it's just what it is. I don't know what it is, man.
And then too, like I say, Bo talk about the two hardest music, classical and jazz. Yeah. Okay, but the difference in classical and jazz started from the streets.
That's right.
It started from the streets, and just to show you how amazing of an art form that is. These guys, they really wasn't trained. No. Because a lot of guys. Great trumpet players. You look at Dizzy Gillespie. I'm not a trumpet player, but I know that, technically, puffing out your jaws like that was wrong.
Right.
Was wrong.
Louis Armstrong did the same thing.
He said it's not the correct way to
He played the bell on the horn.
But the thing about it, to achieve something like that, that much artistry on the horn where technically you're not playing it right. That just goes to show you how strong that is.
And then the reason they put it in the schools, man, because that's how powerful it was. You go to school and get a jazz major now. You know what I'm saying? Get a music and jazz, you know what I'm saying? But it's totally different. It's another kind of concept.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and the thing about it, just like both say, it takes a lot to really get something like that. But then at the time, when those guys was playing back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and stuff like that, this all they heard all the time.
Right.
You know, we grew up in a different time.
Right.
You know, we grew up in a time, so we had to go look for it.
Yeah.
You know, we had to go look for it because
Yeah.
this wasn't on the radios, and nowadays, you know, you got different search engines. I mean, you know, you got the internet. You can find out about a lot of things more.
Oh, yeah,
But just for us with the human race, look, we can find out things a whole lot easier, but we just that much more lazier to go get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Cause we came out one, you can't find
couldn't
nothing.
find that.
You had to go,
But
you
you
had to
can
go
find
to the
it now.
club and get it, you know.
But to sum it all up, if I had to sum this up, I'm gonna just quote Oscar Peterson. Oscar Peterson said, "Jazz is instantaneous composition. You create while you play."
Yeah, that's right. So they weren't transcribing those solos and doing all that stuff back then. They weren't doing no stuff like that. They were making their own solos.
It wasn't
So
technical.
They weren't
It
technical.
really wasn't technical.
They
at
weren't
all.
taking that out. Because
You know.
one thing about me, man, I ain't never want to be a schoolboy musician. A schoolboy musician. It's different from a real jazz musician and a schoolboy jazz musician. It's different. You heard it the other night over there, all the schoolboys over there. You know. We basically, I always take my house to Willie and Bernard because they basically learn in the streets. They ain't been in no classroom, taking no theory and nothing like that.
Right.
Bernard and Willie, they street musicians.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I mean, when we started the thing down at Studio
See, Bernard
98,
was playing
when I
R&B.
mentioned the guy Jesse Taylor,
Yeah.
you know, hey man, you know, and he told me one thing. He said, you know, playing comes from the soul, and you can't make that technical at all. I mean, you can't.
Can't fake that, right?
You cannot fake that. You can learn all the stuff. You know, you can learn all the technicalities of stuff like that. But if it ain't coming from here, if it ain't speaking,
And
you
I'm
know.
gonna tell you about Jesse, you know, it was me, Bernard, Willie, and a guy named Cordell. We'd be on the gig, Jesse said, "This is my band."
That's what he was
just
saying.
took over the band.
That's what he would tell me.
He said, "Everybody, this is his band." He was old. We didn't say nothing. You know?
Yeah, we didn't say that.
Nobody
I mean, but we got a lot from him.
We got
I
a
mean,
lot
you know,
from
we
him.
really got a lot from
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
And the thing about it, I think that's the reason, in my opinion, that's the reason why we kind of stayed in it more, because like I say, you know, he had his faults,
Yeah.
but he loved the music.
Yeah.
You know, he loved the music. And, you know, technically, I mean, I hadn't heard nobody come to
Nobody
town.
come to town not
outplay
playing.
him.
Nobody.
No, serious.
West,
nobody.
all of them. No, West Sound, nobody.
And Grover Washington got humble when he heard him. Grover Washington.
Bagged up.
When he heard Jesse, he was so humble.
He just bagged up.
But it's something you have to love to do.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it has. You have to have a love for it. You know, you just can't say, well,
Yeah.
you know, I'm doing this because I got to.
Yeah.
No, you got to have a love for
I
it.
was just Bernard raised 3 girls, sent them to college,
That's
had a
right.
wife, but hey, he be down there at 2 o'clock in the morning. It had to be at Alabama Power at 5.
Dedication.
He did that for 13 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played it 13 years down there. Yeah, when we played down there,
Yeah.
13 years.
That club, the jam session wouldn't be over with till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh man.
On Sundays.
Take a break. The
I was
guys,
gonna say, you can tell how somebody's serious about something, whether or not they're gonna be dedicated and put in time. Oh, I gotta get up tomorrow early. Oh, I gotta do this. Always excuses. If you really want to do something,
Yeah.
you make a way to do it.
You make a way to
excuses
do
is a
it.
sign of
Yeah.
weakness.
That's
Excuses
all I
is
can
a
always
sign of
tell,
weakness.
yeah.
It's a sign of weakness, man.
Any closing thoughts before we wrap this up, Jose?
Well, my thought is we appreciate you. It's amazing you came by for 2 weeks and checked us out first to see what you really hearing some jazz. Huh?
No
What you
Kenny
were
G.
dreaming. It's not no Kenny G.
Yeah, we
appreciate you, man.
you too.
Yeah.
We appreciate you and hope we get some good tunes off the, make us a CD we can get somebody say, this is what we do, and they can hire us into place.
Yep.
You know, get us some CDs and hire, you know. Yeah. So that's my close. I really appreciate it, man. I enjoyed it, and I hope we can keep doing it. And I
All
wish,
right.
yeah.
Well, I think this is what's going to keep the real jazz alive. So
Can I say one other
sure,
thing?
Bernard. Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch my language. So, you know, y'all can just figure this out. But me and Jose would always have this conversation about music in other places, you know, and like I told you, you know, we've been around a lot of places and stuff like that. And, you know, we've been blessed to being able to play all this time. But we always say about the other stuff, BS don't last.
Right.
So,
Don't
you know, but one thing, you know, we have been able to play, you know, what we like to play all these years.
Yeah.
And at least been able to keep it at a certain level.
Right.
Yeah.
And we ain't hungry.
That's right.
We ain't hungry at
I
all.
don't know. I'm hungry. I need to go get something to eat.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up. Thank you
Okay.
so much for all of you participating and enjoying
Thank
it.
you, man.
All right.
All right.